everybody, very good evening. My name is Vinu Venkatesh and welcome to another lecture with me for SAI Education Group on the English language. We're going to discuss conjunctions today and some of the rules for conjunctions. So I say we start. So conjunctions, right? So what are conjunctions? So conjunctions are nothing but words which join two or more sentences, phrases or clauses. For example, Rita went to her old college and asked the principal for her mark sheet. And is a conjunction here because easily we can split this big sentence into two sentences. So imagine that originally only two sentences were there, right? Rita went to her old college, full stop. She asked the principal for her mark sheet. How can we join these two sentences? We can join these two sentences using a conjunction. Remember, we talked about conjunctions previously. In what context? Can you do you remember? Well, I mean, I know you cannot answer this question, but anyway, we talked about conjunctions in the case of relative pronouns, right? We said that relative pronouns are conjunctions and they also act as pronouns. But in this case, we're talking about just pure conjunctions, all right? Conjunctions can be used to join two or more sentences, and it is not necessary that both sentences be positive and both be negative. They can be used to join a positive and a negative sentence. So there's no hard and fast rule that both sentences have to be positive or both have to be negative. Conjunctions can be single words such as and, with, lest, and so on, but they can also be phrases such as neither, nor, not only, but also, no sooner than, for example. So an example of this would be neither Rita, Sita drank milk. You'll see many more of these examples as we go forward. Okay, so what are the rules? Now, number one rule is what is the rule that we discussed when it came to adverbs in our last class. What is that? That is a rule of inversion. What it means is when you have words such as, when you have sentences which begin with adverbs such as hardly, barely, scarcely, merely, etc., then we said that we have to use an auxiliary verb had plus the subject, the main verb, and then the other verbs. But what we did not emphasize then is that we also have to use the conjunction when. So, for example, if I say hardly had he entered the building when the fire broke out. So always remember, whenever sentences start with adverbs such as hardly, merely, scarcely, barely, first rule is you have to invert the sentence. That means it should be the adverb that it starts with, that is either hardly or barely or merely or scarcely, plus the auxiliary verb which should be had, plus the subject, plus the main verb, plus when, and plus the rest of the sentence. You cannot use than instead of when. That's a common mistake that we make. You always have to use when. All right. What about if we use the conjunction no sooner than? Now, when you no sooner than is a phrase, is a conjunction phrase, you can say, that is used to join two sentences. How do we structure this sentence? See, when we talked about the first rule, we said we had to use an auxiliary verb had. But in this case, you can either use an auxiliary verb had or did. So for example, no sooner did she leave the house than it started to rain. Or no sooner had the team entered the stadium than the crowd began to cheer. Okay, always remember when you use had as an auxiliary verb, the verb at the end should always be the V3 form, the past participle or the perfect past, as you may call it. Okay. Now, in case of conjunction, both whenever you're trying to join two sentences or two words or two phrases using both, you always have to use and. You cannot use as well as, which is a common mistake that we make, because we cannot use both and as well as in a sentence, because both and as well as mean the same thing. You always have to use both and. Okay, both and. So example, both Kerala as well as Tamil Nadu are located in South India. This is wrong because both and as well as have the same meaning. I missed the word meaning and cannot be used in the same sentence. So we have to use both and. So we have to rewrite the sentence saying both Kerala and Tamil Nadu are located in South India. Sorry. Now next conjunction is lest. Many people say it's an old, old-fashioned, old English word, but still you can use it. I think it gives a wonderful flair and flavor to the English language. Flair to the English language, not flavor. So what does lest mean? Lest means else or otherwise. It should always be followed by the auxiliary verb should. Oh, please excuse the extra be there. Yeah. So what would an example be? Run fast, lest you should miss the train. Okay. But if I use otherwise as a conjunction, then the auxiliary verb that we have to use is will or would. So take an umbrella, otherwise you will get wet. Or if I want to write the same sentence using otherwise, I must say run fast, otherwise you will get wet. Right? So just keep this in mind. You just have to memorize these rules. Now, if I use conjunctions such as nothing, none, or else, then I have to use but or except. For example, Tom Sawyer did nothing but paint the fence. None attended the wedding function except the bride's best friend. Right? That's how you have to use that conjunction. But if I use conjunctions such as no other, none other, or rather, then that sentence should also contain than. So start studying now rather than at the last minute. I'm sure you've heard of this, right? If I use the conjunction though or although, then I have to use yet, or I just have to put a comma. I can say, though it rained yesterday, yet the dams are empty. Or I can say, though it rained yesterday, comma, the dams are empty. If I'm using the comma, then there's no need to add yet. If I'm using yet, there's no need to add the comma. But either is required whenever you use though or although as a conjunction. You can use either yet or a comma as given in these examples. Okay, so be clear. Now, when we use conjunctions such as doubt or doubtful, okay, we have to look at in what context they are used. If they are used in affirmative sentences, that is to express uncertainty, we also have to use if or whether in that sentence. For example, I doubt if he will come. I'm not sure if he will come. I'm uncertain if he will come. I can also say I doubt whether he will come. So whenever you're using doubt and doubtful, doubt or doubtful in sentences to express uncertainty, we have to use if or whether. But if you're using doubt or doubtful in a sentence where you suspect something is true or something is false or there's something wrong there, then you have to use that. For example, I doubt that the criminal is innocent. Please add the before the criminal. It makes more sense. So whenever you use doubt or doubtful in a sentence where you want to, where you are suspecting that something is true or something is false, then you have to use that also in that sentence. But if you're using doubt or doubtful in a sentence only to express uncertainty, then you have to use if or whether in that sentence. Okay? I have given this link. It's a pretty good link. It explains this rule in greater detail. So just have a look at this link so that you improve your understanding. Now next. Now if I use the conjunction such, okay, and if the second part of the sentence, that is if I try to join two sentences using the conjunction such, and the second part of the sentence or the second sentence refers to the effect or the result, then I have to use that in that particular sentence. But if the second part of the sentence or the second sentence refers to an example, then I have to use as with such. For example, such was the noise of the plane that the windows of my house shook. Here we are talking about cause and effect. What am I trying to say? I'm trying to say that the noise of the plane was so loud that the windows of my house shook. Please add a the before the windows. Sorry, I missed it. So the noise was so loud, was so great that the windows of my house shook. So in the second part of the sentence, I'm talking about a cause or an effect of the noise. So I have to use such that. Okay. Look at the next sentence. There are many beautiful flowers in the garden, such as rose, hibiscus, etc. Here I'm using such as. Why? Because I'm talking about examples. The second half of my sentence or the latter part of my sentence is giving examples of the beautiful flowers which are there in the garden. So I have to use as and not that. So that brings us to the end of this lecture. Please let me know if you have any questions or comments in the comment box on YouTube. Until next time, wish you all the best and happy studying.